Hi guys, and welcome back. Today is going to be the second episode of this short little character design series that I'm doing. The first one is where I just got down the basic idea, the first thought that I had on him, and then today we're going to go and do some of the designing of the details and just get him really finessed to the final design that I want him to be. And then the third episode is going to be where I take him into a final finished environment and a completed illustration and show him as an actual character interacting with things. So today we are moving on and we're going to do some more specific things, and I will have a link to the first episode up in the cards as well as down in the description. And for today, I'm actually going to break it down into 3 basic steps. The first is I'm going to do 3 full body variations of this character, and then I'm going to do 4 versions of his face mask / goggles that I want him to be wearing, and then I'm going to design out some finessed versions of the color. In the first episode, I had a poll at the end to see which color palette you guys preferred, and orange won by 59%, I believe. So that one was by far the one that the majority wanted. So I continue with that one here and I just work through that. But first off, we can start with the very beginning where I'm going to do these 3 full body variations. So what I did at the very start of this is I started sketching out his body, the body form that I would be drawing on top of. And I did bring in that first sketch that I did in the first episode. That way I could look at it and reference it so that I could get the concept that I wanted out of that, but I was able to fix some of the anatomy issues. Specifically in the first sketch, he was very lanky and I definitely wanted him to be thin and to feel tall, but he was just a little bit too tall proportionately and a little bit too thin. So that was one of the things that I focused on, was just bringing it a little bit more into realism for that, at least so that it looked a little bit more like he would be capable of moving in the way that I wanted him to. So I did make some of those steps to bring him closer to what I envisioned him, but I was able to reference that first loose sketch so that I could get some of the emotion and the general shape that I had in there. I wanted his arms to look very similar, where they had that kind of a bend in the middle of the forearm. So there were things like that that I was paying attention to as I was bringing it from that first thought sketch down into a more refined version. And once I got that base sketched out, that's when I just copied and pasted it 2 more times so that I could work on top of that and then be able to work smarter and just figure out what the details on top of that were going to look like. And I'll admit, this first design took me an extra long time to figure it out and to make it work for some reason. I definitely believe that it's one of those things where when you get out of practice, it's a lot harder to get back into it. And it's been a little while since I've done a full character like this, especially digitally. So I was definitely feeling the sluggishness of not working in that same way. So I did feel like I was struggling a little bit with it, which is good because it means that I absolutely needed to get back in and practice this. When it's that much of a pain, it just shows me that it means that I'm doing the right thing by working on it, and that pushing through and persevering is absolutely what I needed at the time. And it definitely helped. Once I got through this first one and once I got that first sketch of his body itself, that was when I really started getting a little bit more momentum. And then when I did the next 2 designs, I was able to do them a lot more smoother and to be able to think through what I wanted to put down for that. So that's always the one thing that I need to remind myself, is that when I'm working on things like this, I need to make sure that I'm keeping up with the practice of it and to make sure that I go back and keep trying it out. I will say the one big critique I have for this process that I've done so far is that they all are very, very similar. That is a big thing that I need to work on, and honestly, a lot of artists do too. It's one of those key things that can be really hard to break out of, is doing the same thing or doing too many things that are too similar. So in the future, when I'm doing character designs like this, I really need to make a much stronger effort to make sure that I am doing variations so that I can choose things that are different rather than choose from things that are actually pretty similar. So that is absolutely something that I do see as a fault in this process. I do feel like I definitely grew while working on this. So I'm really glad that I was able to get it done and work on him and get some momentum on that. But it does show me that when I work on another character designing session like this, that is the key thing for me to work on. But once I got the basic structure of each of these 3 designs down, I felt way more comfortable and at ease with how I normally work. Like I mentioned, those first getting it down moments was kind of a struggle with this one. But once I got it there, I felt a lot more in tune with how I normally work. And I used to really like doing these very fine details and noodling away at it and slowly hacking it into what I want it to be. So once I got that down and I had something to work off of, it was a lot easier to work in a process that I enjoyed, which is looking at it and figuring out how I can fine tune it. So once I had all three of those designs, I was looking at it and I was able to see what ones I wanted to push farther. So the middle one, I wanted him to have a very sleek design, almost like athletic wear, where it was really tight and it had a very slim cut to it. So I wanted his pants to be very close to his calves at the very bottom, and I wanted the top to be very close and not baggy at all. So that was one thing that when I was looking at it, I pushed that element in the middle one even farther. And I wanted the first one to be a little bit more on this sportier side, where it felt a little sporty casual rather than like super, super sleek. And I pushed some of those details a little bit more. And then the third one was a lot more casual. I gave him like sneakers and a hoodie. And so once I got those three down, it was easier to see what are those slight differences and how can I push it more. And again, this just goes back to variation. Variation is what I need to work on. But once I had something down, it was easier to see what variations I did want to push a little bit more. And as usual, when I'm working on something like this, well, pretty much all of my artwork actually, I am looking up a ton of reference. I cannot stress that enough. The way to be a better artist is to look at reference and see what things actually look like and to expand your visual catalog. You don't know what things are or what they can be until you study them and look at them. So during this whole process, I was looking up tons of photos of different athletic wear, sportswear, shoes, hats, goggles, hoods. I was looking at all of these elements and picking and choosing different details to include in my work or things that I could push farther or exaggerate them. So I highly, highly recommend, if you are working on anything like this or if you're working on a project, look up reference. And the thing is that there's so many times where I've had a clear idea of what I've wanted to do, but I've looked up reference and then I've seen an example of something that was so much more interesting and it sparked an even better idea in me. So always look at reference. I personally have been using Pinterest pretty much all the time. You can find a lot of pretty high quality photos on there and they're pretty well curated. So that's why I prefer that over just like a general Google search. So Pinterest is where I go when I'm looking for a specific thing that I just want to get reference on. And now it's time to start working on the colors. I loved working on the colors this time. It was very nice to have a color palette all ready to go, and I was just ready to jump in and enjoy the process of finding the variations within that color palette. So again, the one that won was orange, blue, and gray. Orange is the primary, blue is the secondary, and gray as the neutral supporting color. And it was a lot of fun to just look and pick and choose the different types of colors that I could use and the different ways that I could express the very slight personality differences in the three different designs. So for the middle one, I wanted him to be very sleek and energized like an athlete. So I chose more of a sharp yellow for that middle part of his clothing because yellow has a lot of energy in it. And that's what's really cool about this color palette, and I'm really glad that it did win, is because the orange just has a lot of energy and movement to it. And that's what his character is. He's this futuristic bike messenger, which I believe I forgot to talk about in this video, but it fits perfectly with what my idea of what I want this character to look like. I want him to look very like he has places to go and energy. And it's nice that this one is also a complementary color scheme or very close to it because it does have that like structure to it with having the energy in the orange and that coolness in the blue. I really love this color palette. And that is it for the second installment of the character design series. Again, the thing that I need to work on the most clearly is variation, but that's one thing that I can just put my focus on in the next character design that I do. But as far as today, I do feel really happy with where these did turn out. And I do really want to know what you guys think. So I have two polls right up in the corner where there's a little I button. You can just click on that and tell me which of the three full body designs you like the most and which of the four visor designs you like the best. And you can just click on that I and select those so that I can know which one wins. That way I can take the winning design for both of those and do a full, complete, finished illustration for the last installment of this series. And that final episode will come out within the next couple of weeks. probably no more than 2 weeks, but I will be able to get working on that. So yeah, please let me know down in the description any of your thoughts on the color palette or anything like that. And again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys at my next video. Bye.